Hi everybody, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records. I'm down here in my basement again after a awful attempt to do a video yesterday out in the Carolina heat. So this is the thread that has gotten started, 25 perfect albums. And I think, is it Man in the Tales of the Man in the Cave or something like that, did something, and then Mazzy's did, well, I'm going to run with that and do 25 perfect albums. And he did that, and then Randall Nelson, or Randy, his channel is Randall Nelson. I watched his a little while ago, and I said, okay, I'm going to want to do my own with that. I'm going to put a link to Randall Nelson's channel down below. He's just getting started, and he has some really good content, so I urge you to check his channel out and subscribe to his channel. Let's get him going. Couple of albums, 2 or 3 albums that Mazzy and Randall did that I would have included in mine if I hadn't seen them do it first. I don't want to do any repeats. Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen was in Randy's video, and Ricky Lee Jones' self-titled album. I'd agree, both those were perfect albums. I believe Mazzy had Louvin Brothers' Satan is Real in his list, if I'm not mistaken. And there were a couple more. I hope I'm not repeating anything. There is no perfect album. We're saying perfect albums. What we really mean is, what I mean when I say perfect album is an album, if I listen to it, side A, flip it over, listen to side B, and when I'm through, I feel really satisfied that I have really enjoyed what I've listened to. I don't have any, well, except for that, or I didn't like the way they included that. It's just, man, that was just really good. That's about as perfect as you're going to get. Okay, a lot of them I noticed are debut albums. Okay, why? Because you've got the whole first part of your life to come up with the material for your first album. But once you've put the best stuff you've come up with so far on an album, sometimes you don't have but 6 months to come up with your next album, maybe a year at best. So that makes it pretty darn hard to follow through. And I always say, any artist that can give you 3 really good albums, oftentimes 3 in a row, but it doesn't have to be. But if they can give you 3 really good albums in their career, they're a very successful artist. Okay. First, from 1977, the Newgrass Revival. Of course, this is Sam Bush and Courtney Johnson, Curtis Birch, and Ebo Walker, the original Newgrass Revival. The album is from 77. It's a reissue on Star Day. The original issue of Star Day as well. But I think 72 is when it came out first, but my copy is a reissue. They do Great Balls of Fire, the Jerry Lee Lewis classic on here. Ginseng Sullivan from Norman Blake, Body and Soul, Whisper My Name, Lonesome Fiddle Blues, Leon Russell's Prince of Peace, Pennies in My Pocket, Cold Sailor. A great mix of traditional and modern composers, interpreted by long-haired guys playing bluegrass-like instruments, acoustic instruments. Okay. The next is kind of a no-brainer. Willie Nelson, Red-Headed Stranger. That great concept album that Willie did. Just listened to this earlier today. Just, he signed with Columbia, and he presented this to them, and they listened to it, and they said, well, that's a pretty good demo. When we're going to get in the studio? He said, no, it's done. That's it. He said, no, these are rough. You got to get in the studio and let's do something. But he had it in his contract that he had artistic control. And he said, that's it. They knew it would be a flop. Boy, was that wrong. And I debated whether to do Red-Headed Stranger or whether to do Stardust. But because this is a mixture of classic country songs and his own compositions, I decided I'd do Red-Headed Stranger Stardust, being the American standards type recording. Great recording, could easily be considered a perfect album. The next was perfect for its place and time and its importance. Will the Circle Be Unbroken? The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, with numerous stars, mostly older stars from country music, from the Nashville establishment, people that weren't getting hits anymore, and this really created a bridge between country and rock music, and made it permissible for young people to enjoy this type of music without feeling like the redheaded stepchild, I guess you'd say. Mother Maybelle Carter, Earl Scruggs, Doc Watson, Roy Acuff, Merle Travis, Jimmy Martin's on here, Vassar Clemens, Junior Husky, Norman Blake, Brother Oswald, all on here, along with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. What a great album this was. Everybody talks about the California country rock as being important, and it was extremely important. Don't get me wrong. But this album is a landmark album. Next, that one, Court and Spark, Joni Mitchell. What can you say? One of the greatest songwriters of the 20th century, I believe. Can't argue with that. That's her most commercially successful album. You could pick any number of them, but that's just a great album. And if you haven't checked out Shannon D's channel, you need to subscribe to Shannon D and watch her videos, especially her Joni Mitchell series, where she takes each Joni Mitchell album and does a deep dive into it. It's really good stuff. I could have gone with their second album or their debut. I picked the Marshall Tucker Band self-titled album. Just a great album. It's got 3 songs on side 1, Take the Highway, Can't You See, and Losing You. And on side 2, Hillbilly Band, See You Later, I'm Gone, Rambling, My Jesus Told Me So, and Abe's Song. Just a tremendous album right there. There's not a flaw in it. My favorite solo artist, I should say, Delbert McClinton. This is Keeper of the Flame. He did this on Capricorn Records in 1979. There is not a bad song on here. Performed flawlessly. There's old Delbert. And he's got side 1 is Plain Old Making Love. What a great song. Just a little bit. Shot from the Saddle, I Don't Want to Hear It Anymore, and Have Mercy. Side 2 is I'm Talking About You. 2 More Bottles of Wine, which had already been made a hit, I believe, by Emmylou Harris. Seesaw, Your Love Is Like a Seesaw. I Received a Letter, and A Mess of Blues. Talk about an R&B singer. You just can't beat Delbert McClinton, and that album really illustrates it. John Starling, he only did 2 solo albums. This is A Long Time Gone. I believe this was the first one. Around 1980 this came out. And this is just a great album. Now, Starling, a trauma surgeon, I believe is what he was. He was in Vietnam as a surgeon in Vietnam. He worked in the greater Washington, D.C. area as a surgeon his whole career, and at the same time was frontman for many years for one of the great bluegrass bands out of the D.C. area, which was a hotbed for bluegrass music, the Seldom Seen. He did these 2 solo albums. He was a friend of Lowell George, Emmylou Harris. In fact, Lowell George plays slide on some of these songs. Ricky Skaggs is on here. Bill Payne from Little Feat. Herb Peterson. John Cowan from Latter Day Newgrass Revival. Tony Rice is on here. Just great. Side 2 is Hobo on a Freight Train to Heaven, which is just one great song. Last Thing I Needed, Brother Jukebox, Carolyn, at the Broken Wheel Inn. He rode all the way to Texas, drifting too far from the shore. That's just side two. I'm not even reading side one on there. John Starling, one of the great, he would be called an Americana artist today. That's not a bluegrass album. He played in a bluegrass band, but that's not a bluegrass album. The similar one here, Ricky Skaggs, Sweet Temptation, and I know I'm showing these in the wrap, but I'm too lazy to take them out. This is from 1979, and this is that transition album. He's playing in Emmylou's hot band, and he's also playing straight bluegrass. And this is now when he goes out on his own and gets kind of transitioning from the hot band into his own live band leader of his own band. Albert Lee's on here, Bobby Hicks playing the fiddle on here, Tony Brown on the piano, Buck White, Sharon Hicks and Cheryl White, the White sisters. Sharon would become his wife. Emery Gordy, just Emmylou Harris is on here. Just a great album that is really what it's doing is paving the way to that traditional country music that would begin in earnest in the early 80s. This is kind of the bridge right there. He's taking old country bluegrass songs, putting a modern spin on it. Okay, that's all on that side. Let's see what I've got over here. Okay, perfect album. Jason Isbell, Southeastern. The great American songwriter is Jason Isbell. He is the best songwriter of the 21st century. I will argue that point with anybody. This album in particular does not have a bad or weak track on it. From Cover Me Up opening to relatively easy closing out the album. And in between you've got Elephant, which will make you cry, Stockholm, Live Oak, a murder ballad really. Songs that she sang in the shower. Just a great Super 8. There's not a bad, I mean I could name every song on here, but I won't. But I mean there's not a bad song on there of it. As we said, country artists, commercial country artists, they're so singles oriented, but this is a really good album that could be considered a perfect album. Midlife, Merle Haggard. This is Big City, and it's got, what year was this? 1981. So you know his career's been going almost 20 years when he put this album out. It's got the title track, Big City, My Favorite Memory, I Think I'm Gonna Live Forever, Stop the World and Let Me Off. One that was a strong single for him are The Good Times Really Over, I Wish a Buck Was Still Silver. I Always Get Lucky With You finishes out this album. This is a great country album. Emmylou, this was a toss-up between Blue Kentucky Girl and Roses in the Snow. But the cover alone makes it a perfect album, I say. But the content is so powerful. It's just got classic songs from people like A.P. Carter and Ralph Stanley. A.P.'s Gold Watch and Chain closes out the album. Side one ends with Ralph Stanley's Darkest Hours Just Before Dawn. Mixed in there, you've got contemporary songs. She does a wonderful version of the Box or Paul Simon song on here. Just a really good. The Louvin Brothers, Your Learning's on here. This is just a great album. Another really strong bluegrass album from a band you maybe only had one or two albums. It's the only, I think they may have had one. I looked up on Discogs a while back. I believe they had one other album. Front Porch String Band out of Alabama, I do believe. And there they are. Now, Claire Lynch, right here, went on to do a lot of bluegrass and gospel bluegrass in the years to come, and had some success in the world of bluegrass. But and her brother is Larry Lynch. I believe that's Larry right here. And also Alan Watkins and Terry Campbell. Alan Watkins on banjo and Terry Campbell on bass. It's a really good bluegrass album. They do the J.J. Cale, if you're ever in Oklahoma. It's one Mazzy had naturally from J.J. Cale. I could very easily have put that one in this list too. But this is just a really great bluegrass album. Now this, I've got two albums, but I really think they should be counted as one. These are two perfect albums. You put them together and you've got one perfect uh, double album. Working Man's Dead and American Beauty from the Grateful Dead. Both came out the same year, and this made the Grateful Dead accessible. It wasn't just the experimental, the spacey stuff. Very much a roots album. We call this Americana today. This lady produced this album herself. That she didn't get credit for it because women didn't do things like that back then. A very, very strong-willed woman who even though somebody else's name appears as producer, they really didn't produce this album. She did. Bobby Gentry, Ode to Billy Joe. And it's not just about that one great, great song. This whole album is so atmospheric. It puts you in a place and time. And that's what an album's supposed to do. Dawg Music, D-A-W-G, Dawg Music, as personified by David Grisman and David Grisman Quintet. This is Quintet 80. This is after Tony Rice wasn't with him on this album, but Mark O'Connor is on this one. Daryl Anger is on here. Mike Marshall, Ron Wasserman playing the bass. And of course, David Grisman on the mandolin. A great, almost perfect album. Modern album from one of the most important artists coming up in the last 20 years, Rhiannon Giddens. This album is, of course, Freedom Highway, which came out, about 3 years ago, 2 years ago. A great album on None Such, I believe. And this has got At the Purchaser's Option, which is a song about a slave sale. And the woman that is being auctioned, and the song is from the perspective of the woman, the lady that's being auctioned. She has a little baby, and whoever wins her at auction, wins the bidding at auction, it is at the purchaser's option whether he will also take the baby or not. You talk about a strong song. The Angels Laid Him Away, the Mississippi John Hurt song. Julie, which is another Rhiannon Giddens penned song, as was at Purchaser's Option, which is about a slave right at the very end of the American Civil War. And she is still with her master, but the Union troops are coming through the area. Birmingham Sunday, need I say more? You know what I'm talking about with that one. Better Get It Right the First Time. Was written 2 or 3 years ago, but pertains very much to Black Lives Matter movement today. It could, you would have thought it was written last week. Let's see, just a great album. Freedom Highway, which of course Pop Staples wrote, closes out this album. So this is a really great album. Rhiannon Giddens, Freedom Highway. Check it out if you get a chance. And wow, 25 is a lot of records, isn't it? Okay, I'll speed through these. Dire Straits, debut album. Debut albums are often so strong. Down to the Waterline, Setting Me Up, Sultans of Swing, Just a great, great album. We need an opera. We need some opera, right? How about the Drive-By Truck or Southern Rock Opera? Just extremely good album that could be near perfect. Everybody's probably going to pick some Bob Dylan. Why don't we just go back to the basics? Let's take this early Bob Dylan album. This is the first one, wasn't it? Produced by John Hammond. Talking New York, In My Time of Dying, Man of Constant Sorrow, Fixing to Die, Pretty Peggy-O. Gosh, it's just Gospel Plow, House of the Rising Sun, Freight Train Blues, Song to Woody. Closes out with See That My Grave Is Kept Clean. Contemporary country album, not Nashville sound album, but very modern for its time. Rosanna Cash, 7-Year Ache. That was what, about 1981? Yeah, I hit it nail on the head. That was 1981. Great, great album. Texas singer-songwriters, we can't leave them out. The debut album from Guy Clark, old #1. It's got Rita Ballou, She Ain't Going Nowhere, A Nickel for the Fiddler, That Old Time Feeling. Texas 1947, Desperados Waiting for a Train, Instant Coffee Blues, Let Him Roll. I didn't name them all, but that's just a great album. I really think Crosby, Stills, and Nash were at the best when Neil wasn't with them. This was a great, great album. I don't think they needed to add Neil. I mean, I love Neil Young, but why add him? This was, that's about perfect right there. My comments on David Allen Coe. But this is a great album right here. Once Upon a Rhyme, I think it's his second or third major label album. It's got Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone, Jody Like a Melody, Sweet Vibration, some folks call it Love, another pretty country song, Piece of Wood and Steel, Fraulein, You Never Even Called Me By My Name. Singer-songwriters, you say? Top that one right there. Jackson Browne, Late for the Sky. There's only 4 songs per side on here, but every one of them is just blow you away. Allman Brothers Band, brothers and sisters, everybody goes to the classic live album, but this was the album when Dwayne had died. Barry Oakley was going to leave us during this, and who kept them together? Dickie Betts. He doesn't get credit that he deserves. Dickie Betts is a great artist. Cantankerous, yes, ended up getting them dismissed from the band eventually, but the band would have been over before this album came out if it had not been for him. He pushed the band, he led them, and they came up with this 3 songs on side 2, Southbound Jessica and Pony Boy. How do you beat that? Wasted Words, Come and Go Blues, Jelly Jelly, and their only hit single. It's a good song, but I'd call it the weakest song on this album. Maybe the only weak link, but not enough to not make it a perfect album, would be Ramblin' Man. Okay, and finally, another country artist, John Anderson. This is his second album, John Anderson 2. It's got I'm Just an Old Chunk of Coal, the Billy Joe Schaefer song on it. He does Lefty Frizzell's I Love You 1,000 Ways. July the 12th, 1939. I'm Almost Jack Daniels, Drowned. It's got Chicken Truck on here. Good little fun little song. The Same Old Girl. And it's an excellent follow-up to a debut album. I could just easily have put the first album on there. Okay, so there's my 25 perfect albums, but we know they're not perfect. No album is perfect, but they're pretty darn close. I'll bid you adieu. And remember, folks, be kind to your neighbors, 'cause we're all neighbors.